is dealing with the creative producers from 3 of our most creative and wonderful children's channels in the UK. We have Jackie Edwards from the BBC, who's looking to see who else I might be talking about. We have Nina Hahn from Nickelodeon and Ryan Ross from Disney. Each of them have, oh yes, a round of applause. I won't bother giving you their absolute job descriptions because I shall allow each of them to do that themselves, as they each have varying roles within their corporations. So if we begin with maybe Jackie, if you'd maybe like to tell us what your role is and what it is you're doing, what you're looking for, and all the usual things that you say at events like this to this assembled crew of creatives.
Thanks very much, Mr. Collingwood, for having me on your panel. My name is Jackie Edwards, and I'm the head of acquisitions and animation for BBC Children's. So I work across CBeebies, where I've been working for the last 7 years, and across CBBC with the lovely colleague over there, Lucy Pryke. And we pre-buy animation, we buy animation off the shelf, and we also buy live action content off the shelf, but we have 2 quite different approaches to the channels. CBeebies, it's all pre-buys. We work with a lot of UK producers because they've got an intuitive connection to our very youngest audience. For CBBC, we want our older audience to see more of the world. So we get lovely live action content like The Next Step, which is immensely popular for us, as well as beautiful animation like The Deep, which we've just acquired from lovely Elsa at Technica, and also fantastic pre-buy animations like Screen Street from Coolabye, Bob Snipes and Gunwalls from Cheeky Little Media, and Zig and Zag from Jam and Flickpix in Northern Ireland. So we've got a range of different content, a range of different ways we work with producers. At the moment, we are. We just had. Shall I tell you a bit about what's going on at BBC?
Yes, do.
Yes, because it's been busy out here at BBC Towers. We've had some new director of children's be installed, the amazing Alice Webb, who is an absolute dynamo. And I think, children's television business in the UK is pretty bleak, but in terms of the BBC, Alice has been an amazing cheerleader for BBC Children's and children's industry in general to the wider BBC. And I think in this difficult time of charter renewal, I think she's done the very best job of putting us front and centre of where we go next with BBC. Part of her remit last year was to do a great big time kicking exercise of the whole of the children's business. So she looked at everything. There were work streams all over the place. You couldn't move for a work stream, quite frankly. But the net result was a big digital plan, which she announced at Kids Green recently. And it's exciting. It's energised the whole of the department and actually made a lot of people's lives more simpler, departments more streamlined. We've got some new staff in acquisitions. Yes! So a dedicated person looking after submissions, which we've never really had before because it's always part of somebody's job. So hopefully we'll be more responsive in the future, which I know is always one of the big bugbears for people. It's just like, what do you think about this? And it's just, the volume of our work is just so huge. It's very hard to keep on top of that stuff. So there's a lot of good stuff happening.
Great. And is that person across submissions? Is that across both CBeebies and CBBC? Is it the same?
Yes.
And is it one person or a department? Or?
It's one person, Tony.
Okay.
It is the BBC. That is a department in and of itself.
Are you allowed to tell us who that one person is?
They haven't been appointed yet, but as of next month.
Right.
So positive changes though.
Just one other clarification. Your role changed slightly from just being CBeebies recently.
That's true.
How does that change? What is that change exactly?
Well, as the Spice Girls once said, 2 became 1, and CBeebies acquisitions and CBBC acquisitions were merged into one tidier organisation. We've got much clearer lines of reporting, and it's much more joined up in terms of our practices and processes. And so it's a very happy marriage so far, isn't it? I think. Yes.
So if somebody's coming with a children's animation show, it would be yourself? Or,
I would say
a commissioning person?
The new person, there's been an editorial assistant, so they will be the person that does the first look.
Right.
So all submissions should go in there. because I love having lots of pen pals, but you can have too much of a good thing sometimes.
Yes.
So that's the first point of person. I'm always happy to talk if you've got specific questions about specific projects, of course, but just in terms of that process, that would be a first point of contact, the first place to pitch something in.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks very much, Jackie. We'll come back as we dig deeper into how to pitch and how to make shows for these guys. But if we move on to Orion.
Hi.
And talk about Disney.
Yes.
And where you sit within the grand scheme of the Disney Corporation in the UK and what you're looking for.
Well, I sit at a very small corner of Disney in Hammersmith, which weirdly is our regional headquarters for Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. So our team is a regional team, and we look after original content for Disney Channel, Disney XD, Disney Junior, the 3 kids channels, across the whole region. So we look to develop, co-produce, acquire, and commission both animated and live-action content. My focus is really on animation, I'd like to show kind of an example, if that's okay.
We would love to see an example. I don't know if the lights can actually do.
Wait, whoa. I just want to set this up a little bit. This is a new show which is coming to Disney XD in the UK in May. It's called Counterfeit Cat. It's also been picked up by Disney XD globally. So our job is really to make, is to pick up shows that are made in Europe that fit our brands, but which can also be used for Disney channels across the world because our brands are really the same everywhere. So this one is about a vain and nervous and selfish and pampered house cat called Max, who's never had to do anything for himself for his entire life. And lives with a doting owner called Betty, who's half blind, in a comfortable apartment. This is not autobiographical, by the way, at all. And one day, a spaceship crash lands in his laundry room, and there's a young boy alien called Gark, who is lost and gullible and naive and needs looking after. And Max, this house cat who's never had to do anything responsible, suddenly has to look after this young kid. And he disguises him as a cat in kind of a crappy cat suit, and hence the name Counterfeit Cat. So it's really about their relationship. It's a kind of sibling comedy about Max and Gark. This is something that was developed by our team with a British company, actually a couple different British companies, who wound up with Wildseed in Bristol, which is a small new company. It's set up as a UK-Canada treaty co-production. It's majority UK, but it's also with, and it's with Disney XD and most territories globally, but it's with Teletoon in Canada. We don't own this show. It's actually with the producers. We just have a stake and a license in it, so this is not a 100% Disney show. I think that's all the sort of relevant stuff. This is a short that I'm going to show you. It's 2 minutes long. In addition to the 5211s that we're making for the series, we always try to make something that'll work on digital platforms or additional content or something like that. So as far as the process goes, we made these shorts first to kind of test out the characters, and you'll see it's really just kind of a character sketch. Anyway, here's a short for Counterfeit Cat. Nobody's seen this yet before, so don't record it and have a look.
You say that Disney don't own that show, that you developed it and you created it, and so was that initially pitched to you then, or to your department?
Yes, it was. I mean, I think I first saw it as like a one-sheeter.
Right.
And it went through a couple of different versions and a couple of different looks and styles. But usually, everything that we do in Europe is some kind of co-production. So we work with other partners. We work with. It's quite different. We're not a studio ourselves, unlike Disney and Burbank. So we work with independent studios all over the region.
Great. Well, thanks very much for sharing that with us. And we'll move on to Nina and find out a little bit about Nickelodeon and where Nina sits within all of that. I think you also have a clip maybe that you'll want to show at some point.
We can show at some point if anybody wants to see some fun stuff. Yes, so I run production development for Nickelodeon. I've been there for 12 years now, and I think at this point I actually do bleed orange. Nick is a really amazing place to work. It's an amazing place to be associated with, both as a staff person, but also as a creator. It's a company which is very unique to itself in a lot of ways, in that it's very much an authentic company that wants to be everywhere kids are. And in order to be everywhere kids are, We take very seriously the creators with whom we work, the research that we do against finding out what these kids are going to want, and then supporting that effort in over 70 Nick channels around the world. And that takes a sort of a very interesting brain behind it to make it all work. We have content that we make for the big Nick space in both animation and live action, which is sort of roughly between the 6 to 12-year-old sweet spot of being 10. We have content that goes against the Nick Junior space, which is the preschool space. We do live action, we do TV movies, and then obviously all of the stuff that happens in the digital space and the sort of support pieces that go around what we make for television. I think what's really interesting talking in this room, I imagine most of you guys are independent producers, and I always think that's such a funny term because it's sort of the least independent job that there is out there. And as a network, I think we really want to support that and be working with you all as a partner and providing a home for your voice, your vision, your show, the stories you want to tell, versus take our stamp and put it on top of you and say, squeeze yourself into this place and what we do. The network itself is always looking for creators and creator-driven content, and it's incredibly authentic in its approach to that in every way that we look for that. I think at the core of Nickelodeon, we're a very, very playful network, and that comes through in everything that we make and everything that we do. And so the content that we look for has to really match that. Where we look for it has been really a great success story. There's been many, many, many examples of us working globally across the world, and we really sort of make things once and use them everywhere, because today's kid really is culture agnostic in terms of where things come from and what culture they've come from. So for us, we again like to speak to that and catch that nuance. We work with a ton of creatives in the UK. We produce a lot in the UK. We produce in Israel. We produce in Australia. We produce in Spain. We produce in Latin America. There's a lot that we do in a lot of different places. And for us at the core, it's sort of less about where you're producing and more about finding a creator who has a voice, a story that matches the voice and story of the brand.
Great, it's good to know. And what have you got to show us?
I can show you a few things. We brought a few clips with us. One is a preschool clip and one is a Big Nick clip. We'll show you maybe the Big Nick clip first, which is a property called Pinky Malinky, which is a pair of creators, but one of them is Chris Garbutt, who you guys may know from Gumball and a bunch of other shows that are well known, Foster's Home. And he has now sort of set himself up at the studio in LA as a Brit in LA, which is a story unto itself, frankly, and told this story that he's always wanted to tell. About a character who happens to be a hot dog, who's trying to live life in a normal high school sort of setting, but it's a sort of mockumentary style of how he lives his life, and everything he does is Snapchatted and sort of digitized in one way or another. So you have a linear TV show in an 11-minute episode, and plus that you have all of the work that's going to air as a result of him sort of mockumentarying himself on our app and on our website and all the things that come sort of in the digital space. The other clip, which we'll show you too, is from a wonderful, fantastic experience of a show, a preschool show called Digby. And I think Ollie's here from Blue Zoo. I saw him, there he is. Praise Ollie. We're going to show a tiny little clip. This has been a great experience of, again, a really interesting DNA of a project that started locally and then went globally, which is, again, a sort of a greenhouse process that we like to work towards, where a region can start something and then it can find its legs and then go globally. So in this case, it started in the UK and then is now going to be in the US as well. And it's a CGI project that we're in partnership with Blue Zoo on, and it follows the story, and again, creator-driven, and it follows the story of a dragon, a fledgling dragon who's sort of learning to fly. And it's very much driven about each and every episode about what this dragon Digby wants. And so it's a very galvanizing series to watch because you feel really wanting to embrace what he's doing and how he's going to get there and if he's ever going to fly. So those are the two little bits and bobs.
Row 18. It is great to see all three of you are obviously embracing the UK talent and making it happen with new shows that have come from the UK or from Europe. But a lot of people, I always ask myself the same question. When I'm walking in with something new to you guys, how far do I take it before I come in? I don't want to go so far that I've gone too far and it's not quite what you want. But so at what stage do you like to see that first initial glimmer? Is it possible to say that?
It's tricky, isn't it? Because every project's different. And so some might need a little more to kind of understand where it's coming from, and others you get straight away. There's very, very high concept things. And so sometimes you get a one sheet and there's a great big idea on it that you immediately walk to, you know it's going to resonate with your audience. And other times you need a bit more sort of time and thought about sort of what it is going to bring to the party at the end of the day. So I don't think there's any set rule.
I agree. I just jump in and say something kind of blunt. Generally, we like to look at stuff really early, you know, to see what it looks like. But it also really depends on the talent that is attached to the project. And we always look for really strong creators and really strong talent who can actually make the thing. If it's somebody who has a great track record, even something really cool out there on YouTube, it doesn't mean that they have to be a 30-year industry veteran.
Exactly.
But somebody, again, if there's a really strong talent, you can pitch in a really simple top-line way. If we don't know you at all, it's better to see a little bit more and to see a little bit more depth in the project. That's just the reality, because it really, animation takes so long and it's so complicated and it's so spread out in many different departments. You need really strong, great, stubborn talent at the heart of it to really pull it together, and that's kind of the first thing that we would look at. And I think that if you do have some sort of track record, you can pitch it a simpler way. I think that's, you know,
and showing
that's
what's
the reality.
distinctive about it, because you guys probably get pitched as many shows as we do. I think it was 1,000 shows just to CBBs last year, and we committed to, I think, 4 last year.
Right.
So it's something, when you pitch, I think be clear about why this is so bloody gorgeous and brilliant and so different for the channels as well. Be distinctive and just tell us why you think it is, what it's going to deliver to our audience that we're not already doing.
I think for us, though, I might differ from these two. I mean, we want to see it really early. Anything you got, really early. I think for us, because Nick is structured in such a way where we have a very robust development division as well as the production and the people who sort of pick it up, for our development teams to see things in their infancy allows us to start a conversation with you that goes both ways. What you're working on, steer you with any direction we might have with things that might be relevant to the ongoing development of what you're working. Helps introduce you to the various buckets you could put your project in from a deal perspective, because there's many, many different ways to craft a deal at Nick. For us, you know, a napkin art is just as good as a 10-page Bible. I mean, it really, for us, is to see things at their very, very beginning, as long as they have your vision and the story you want to tell attached to them. It's good enough for us.
And if a creator comes through the door, maybe a writer or an animator who's working somewhere else with their idea, they don't have a big organization behind them. Have you helped matchmake and bring these things together? Have you been proactive in making that happen?
Definitely.
Yeah, and for the BBC as well, do you help?
Totally, and again, like you say, Mina, it depends what you think where the show should sit. And sometimes if it's an individual writer, something's very, very early doors, we do have an in-house development department as well. Our acquisitions team is very small and sort of we've got a lot going on, so it's really hard to commit a lot of development time, but we do it. So when we see things early, we think there's something in it, we are prepared to kind of follow it from an early stage and hope it's going to, we'd be able to pick up our acquisitions. But there are a couple of routes in, and maybe we can talk about that a bit later.
Yes, well, we don't have much of a bit later, actually.
No, don't, sorry.
We're due to finish at 1:45, are we not? Somebody's going to tell me yes. So I was just wondering if, rather than me carry on, if there's anybody in the audience who'd like to ask a specific question to these guys about anything we've talked about or things we haven't talked about yet. Yes, I don't know if there's roving microphones. Thank you.
Thank you. Lindsay Watson, Connect Productions. I'm looking for a bit of advice actually in 2 areas. So as a new producer, how do I ensure I get my producer credit? Who approves that ultimately? Is it the broadcaster or the studio on indie productions? And then what sort of budgets overall are you seeing fit well within your slate?
Okay, so one's credit.
So if, as an individual, you've been working with indie producer under our sort of acquisitions animation circumstance, so then it would come to what you agree with that production company, what your role is across production. From our point of view, our credit and branding guidelines say that anybody named there has got to have a significant creative contribution. So as long as you're doing that and you've got that agreement with a production company, all is good. What's the question?
About finance, how much do the BBC put into something? Are there templates?
Yes, there are, Tony. Can I tell you what they
Yes,
are?
please do.
We currently buy the majority of our animation from indies via our acquisitions license deal, and it's a straightforward 5-year license for unlimited runs in the UK. A couple of sort of specific online rights, but nothing too onerous, nothing that's going to stop you exploiting elsewhere. For an acquisition, we can only contribute up to 24% of a reasonable budget, I would add, not a
So what do you cap that
exciting
as?
one. Well, it depends on the show, doesn't it? You know, if somebody comes in with a very, very simple 2D show, it's going to cost £25 million. That would not be reasonable. So,
At what point do you start laughing then? I mean, what's the...
I laugh all the time.
Okay, well,
No, but anyway, up to 24%. We do pay more for shows that are UK originated and when there is an intent to produce substantially in the UK.
And Nina, what sort of what credits first as to how that works? And then,
In terms of credits, obviously it's a deal negotiation when it comes down to it, but ultimately if you're the producer or you're the writer or you're the creator, that's the credit you get. I mean, I think it's, you know, it's depends again how you're coming in and what is behind you when you come into it, but I think it's, you know, it's pretty straightforward. It sort of is what it's meant to be when you're in that position. And in terms of budgets for us, it's a very difficult question to answer, and it's not being evasive at all. It's that every project is completely different because of the way it's being set up these days. And the sort of global quilting process of co-production means that depending on where you're producing, it completely impacts the budget and the contribution, and therefore the deal that we might set with the creator. So it's hard to sort of answer.
how much money have you got?
Right this minute, sitting on the stage.
Do you take the lead in financing a show that had come through the door?
We've done it in all different ways. We've done it all
I know
different
it's a hard
ways. I
question.
know, it's a hard question, but it's an easy answer. I mean, we really do, literally do it in all different ways. We've got shows coming out of the studio in LA, which are sort of the very big budget, fully funded shows. We've got shows coming out of the regions that we take in an acquisition, that we take in a pre-buy, that we contribute sort of more than a pre-buy to, but less than a fully funded show. They all come in different shapes and sizes, and I don't think it's a sense of one size fits all at all for us.
Ryan, anything to add to that?
I would say for our European co-productions, again, depending on the total series budget, we look at a quarter to a third of the budget, but again, it depends on, and that's for a sort of set of European rights on a pre-buy basis, basically, and some sort of participation. But it's just kind of as a rule of thumb, it sits between 25 and 33%. Again, depending on what that actual total is. On an acquisition basis, it could be slightly less than that. It might not be all territories. So again, it goes from very, very small amounts up to about a third, depending on the project.
Okay.
And for the credits thing, if you had to deal with us directly, that would be set out in the contract. And otherwise, it's for you to work out with the company that you're working with directly.
Right. Any other questions from anybody? Yes, Ollie.
You might not know, the Animate scheme, do you know if that's going to be repeated next year? And is there still opportunities outside that to sell your shows in? Or is that a lockdown on?
I think there are opportunities to pitch into the in-house development departments for CBBC and CBBS. So, you know, don't ever discount that if you think that that's appropriate for your show. And I think probably more pertinent to individuals or authors. The Animate project is a fantastic one, and one that's sort of attracted a lot of attention. Other sort of more student-focused things include the Scream Street Small Bites that Lucy worked on last year with Factory, and that was specifically for students in a specific area of the country, namely the Northwest. But there are sort of initiatives that go on, but I can't say that's definitely going to happen this year, but there is a rolling sort of process, and we are always looking for opportunities to sort of collaborate, whether it's with colleges, students, individuals. So I think there are sort of several opportunities to work with the BBC.
And Greg.
Have
VOD and OTT rights. The DVD market has collapsed. Producers are, shall we say, nervous about a lack of revenue backing their shows at the back end of their shows. What are your positions on taking video on demand rights?
In the good old days, before Netflix, we used to, our acquisitions license agreements for 5 years, and we used to ask for a holdback on all VOD services for the term of license. With the introduction of players like Netflix, who do bring significant amounts of money to the party for independent producers, you know, it would be churlish of us to sort of deny anybody that access. So we've amended our policy, and our standard holdback for is 2 years now. If somebody's getting a particularly massive amount of money that they can argue for a shorter holdback, we will entertain it, but it's got to kind of make sense to us, because we need to, you know, get some value for money for the license fee payer, essentially. And as Rod says, you know, YouTube is a great promotional tool. CBBC and CBeebies have their own YouTube channels, and we use them to promote and hunt back to the channel. So we have some reciprocal rights for very limited AVOD usage for producers under our contract now. So it's changing all the time, so the landscape is changing so fast, so it's an ongoing conversation.
Do you guys split these rights out, or is it all part of the overarching package?
It's changing all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, frankly, I can't speak about it. A lot of it's confidential, but it is the thing where actually with the lawyers and the people that we negotiate, it's where we spend most of the time on our contracts at this stage. And there are some rights that we need to keep for our Disney branded platforms, but we're also conscious that producers need to recoup and that shows need to get financed. And we're really open to looking at every project differently and seeing what the sort of co-production and finance constellation looks like, and seeing where we might need to give in order to make that work. So far, we don't have a one-size-fits-all solution. But because we don't fully fund projects, our European co-productions, we're very sensitive to the fact that the rest of the money needs to come from somewhere. And we try to be as flexible as we possibly can while still protecting the rights that we need for our business. But to be honest, that's all we talk about right now. And that's what we're spending all of our time trying to figure out.
So we talk about too. We
Yeah.
get together,
Yeah.
we talk about it all the time.
Hey, let's talk about that. Yeah, awesome.
We're all only
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about it because it's clearly where we're sitting right now. I mean, I think we mirror Disney, but I think on the Nick side, we do fully finance a lot of stuff. So obviously in that case, those rights become part of the package that is fully financed. And so we need to hold on to those in order for us to actually recoup. But then on the projects that are not that model, again, the same as Orion, we look at it every single time in a holistic way and figure out, how can we make this work for all parties involved? And you don't just have a sort of a rule and that's the way we go, because the projects are brought in very differently and funded in very different percentages from all parties.
I actually had a quick question, because Viacom own Nickelodeon, and now they also own Channel 5, which has Milkshake.
Yes.
And I know Nick and Milkshake have done deals historically in the past. Now that they're both owned by the same Uber big company thing, are they still ring-fenced, or is there any kind of thing going on there?
Milkshake will always be Milkshake, and Nick Jr. will always be Nick Jr. And those two brands and the content that is served up on those brands is what parents and kids have come to expect to be there. So the brand, in terms of your viewing experience, will feel the same. But clearly, because we're now under one umbrella, the sort of behind-the-scenes ability to make sure that we can cross-pollinate and work together seamlessly is something that we have, sort of great plans for doing. And I think certainly the content has gone back and forth historically, even before the merger. That will continue to happen where appropriate. But there's hope to actually make sure that we can have producers and talent and other pieces of the behind-the-screen piece come together between Nick Jr. and
Great. Good, well, thanks for that. And I think we are running over, but anybody else got any burning questions to ask the panel before I thank them for that? Yes, last question. There's a microphone coming for you.
Anne-Marie from Broadcast Magazine. Can I ask the panel if there's anything specific that they're looking for?
We're looking for more great female characters in animation. We need animation that works for boys and girls, and that's something that we don't find enough of. And we have had some really great success when we do find it, and there's not enough of it out there. So just as a simple top line, girl characters, female creators, but again, Disney Channel has a really, really big girls audience, and trying to find the kind of animation that will sit on Disney Channel means having really great girl characters. So that's just a big top line that's important to us.
For us, obviously we cut across live action, animation, preschool, TV movies, so anything that falls into that genre that matches the sort of heart, fart, smart brand of who we are is something that we'd be interested in seeing. And I think additionally, same as Orion, certainly gender neutral is a big part of it. Aspirational for us is a big part of it, so your world only a little bit better. And creator driven, so really authentic, a voice, a story you want to tell that's relevant to kids in whatever genre you're working in.
Thank you. Jackie?
Likewise. We were after sort of girl ensemble piece that's smart, funny rather than being princessy. That's more our thing. And character-driven roles for 6 to 9-year-olds is always top of Cheryl's want list for CBBC. She's also quite interested in a high-octane action-adventure show with public service heart, so sort of physically endeavour. So that is something that keep kids on the seat and transfixed. For CBBS, we're kind of less prescriptive, but things that help our young audience take small steps into big subjects. We like things that nourish, things like what's the big idea, philosophy for preschoolers. That sort of thing's great. Funny shows help, but always and always great characters that really kind of relate to our audience, great storytelling that engage, and just thematically distinctive show ideas. So something that sort of will get you out of that 1,000 pictures.
Right, well, thank you very much, Jackie, Nina, Orion, clap.